EVO.
This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey everybody, we haven't spoken to you since before Christmas, but we're back with our what, Jeff?
21st episode.
Yep, and we're dedicating it to Valentine's Day. Hi, I'm Bruce.
And I'm Jeff. Welcome to Taboo Treasures, a podcast that explores the human obsession with objects of extreme rarity and infamy and the darker side of history.
Today's episode, Valentine's Day. Love, lies, and death. In the beginning, Valentine's Day wasn't exactly a romantic holiday. It has roots in a Roman fertility festival that was held around February 15th, and it involved animal sacrifices and other rituals. It was loud, physical, and pagan, not exactly chocolate and flowers.
And one popular legend comes from the 3rd century AD when a priest called, St. Valentine.
Who?
St. Valentine performed illicit marriages for young soldiers, and that was the romantic part, except that he got his head cut off for it. So it wasn't until centuries later that his memory became associated with love and devotion, although if you forget the flowers, you still get your head cut off.
During the Middle Ages, its meaning began to shift. For example, in England and France, February 14th marked the beginning of the birds' mating season, and Chaucer, the famous British poet, wrote of Valentine's Day as a day for lovers in the 14th century, and that's a big reason for the date becoming connected to love traditions. Basically, it went from a day of martyrdom to a day of romance.
By the 18th century, handwritten love notes became a thing in Britain, and then in the 19th century, mass-produced Valentine's cards really started showing up in the U.S. and just sped up the whole process. Next came roses, chocolates, jewelry, and pretty soon Valentine's Day turned into a major retail event that was centered on romantic expression, sort of like paying for sex, but without the romance.
By now, all of its darker elements, the pagan rituals, the executions, and all the rest of the historical violence has been replaced by heart-shaped symbols and marketing campaigns. So basically, that's how Valentine's Day evolved from an ancient fertility rite and martyrdom into today's retail bonanza.
At Matless Florist in New York City, Valentine's Day is by far the busiest time of the year.
Everybody gets flowers.
Everybody gets flowers. Everybody has to come home with flowers or send flowers.
If men are from Mars and women are from Venus, that difference is amplified during Valentine's Day. Now, get this, a new survey conducted by financial services company Bankrate found the sexes have very different expectations of how much money should be spent on Valentine's Day. Men will spend an average of $339 on their partners, while women, come on ladies, will only spend $64.
Here are a few of the steps that Valentine's Day took along the way to punishing men for forgetting the stupid holiday.
Yeah, the early marketing. By the early 1900s, retailers started to see the marketing opportunities, so they promoted gifts like chocolates and flowers specific to the holiday and linked them to love and romance, the fuckers.
The public loved it, and the trend blew up. The greeting card industry played a crucial role in popularizing Valentine's Day. In the 1850s, printed cards became widely available and gave people a simple way to write a love letter without having to write a love letter.
And major companies like Hallmark jumped in with a bunch of different design themes, humor, and that sort of thing. And that's where the original notion came from, that it was a Hallmark holiday. But as we know, that's not true. Anyway, all of that brought in a wider audience, and sales took off until the cards became a staple gift for Valentine's Day. Nowadays, of course, about a zillion cards are exchanged every year, and the card companies make a fortune.
And pretty soon, all sorts of businesses got into the act. Restaurants started offering special dinner menus for couples, and retailers started promoting stuff like jewelry, spa days, and even super romantic electronics. What does that mean? But of course, the money flowed like money does, and Valentine's Day became the major commercial event that it is today.
Yeah, consumer spending in 2025 alone for Valentine's Day was $27.5 billion. And about 14.5 of that went to various gifts for significant others.
So the other money went to people they cheated on with or something.
No, believe it or not, most of it went for jewelry.
Yeah. And then, of course, florists stocked 250 million roses specifically for Valentine's Day and sell about $1.8 billion of old-fashioned Valentine's Day flowers. During the week of Valentine's Day, retailers take in about $2 billion on about 58 million pounds of chocolate and candy. Wow. And here, of course, is our favorite. Pet owners spent a total of $1.7 billion on Valentine's Day gifts for their pets. But it's hardly just on Valentine's Day. Some of the stuff is actually surprisingly affordable for top designer brands. Like you can get a Versace Medusa embellished dog raincoat and a Prada crystal studded satin dog harness and a Gucci pet, what is it, Herbarium
print bowl.
For about the $500 range.
Yeah, but if you really love your dog, there's a $7,500 Gucci pet bed, which I'd like a $7,500 bed.
Yeah.
And then there's the La Collection de Bijoux Amour dog collar. Take a guess.
I see it, so.
Yeah. I'm sure anybody who's listening would probably guess at the $3.2 million. All I can say is if your dog's wearing that, pick your dog parks wisely.
And yeah, we would do this if we had money.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is if we had, yes, we, yeah.
And dogs deserve it, right?
Exactly. Anyone who's forgotten Valentine's Day knows that relationship stress is just a bitch on Valentine's Day. Even if you remember, the search for the perfect gift or grand gesture or whatever can just be really stupid. When one person in the couple remembers, look out for the other one.
Technology, of course, has made everything all better by helping businesses analyze data to create targeted advertising to specific audiences. For example, a jewelry vendor knowing who might be looking for an engagement ring and spam them up with pop-ups and sales emails. And then there's social media, which knows everything about everybody, so they know every single thing you've ever Googled, and they target you accordingly.
And there are different traditions all over the world. They've all got different ways to get money out of everybody for gifts. Noodles in South Korea, that's their problem.
So, of course, you can't do Valentine's Day without Valentine's Day movies. So here's a list of a few that we think are worth talking about. Of course, the movie called Valentine's Day. An ensemble cast navigates love and relationships on Valentine's Day. Sounds awesome, but not original. Sleepless in Seattle, one of the wife's favorite movies.
Everybody's wife's favorite movie.
Yeah. It's a romantic tale of love across distances featuring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, the mama of fucking romantic comedies.
Mama?
Yes, she was the what would you call her? The go-to.
She was America's sweetheart.
Yeah, America's sweetheart. It was awesome, and we admit it.
Bringing Up Babies, a great movie from 1938. It's a screwball comedy about a paleontologist and a playful heiress.
Do you remember when that came out?
Very funny.
Did you have a Valentine when that came out?
Oh, God. Have you ever seen it? It's Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn, and it's directed by Howard Hawks. It's really an amazing movie.
Oh, no. Okay. We got to check it out.
Yeah. Then Love and Basketball is on the list. It's a story of love intertwined with the passion for basketball. Natural fit for Valentine's Day.
And, of course, there's The Notebook, which everybody cries in, right? That's what I heard. It's a sweeping romance that spans decades based on a Nicholas Sparks novel. It was horrible. Never saw it. So I don't know it was horrible, but everybody said it was horrible.
It was horrible.
And then this is one of Jeff's favorites, Crazy Stupid Love,
Oh, yeah.
which is great. It's a comedy that explores various facets of love and relationships, but it's hardly just that. Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Julianne Moore, and Emma Stone are amazing.
10 Things I Hate About You. This one cracks me up because it's a modern adaptation of Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew. I liked the original better, but I was very young when I saw it. Pride and Prejudice is a romantic drama based on Jane Austen's classic novel. And, if you got the impression that she was like a stuffy Regency-era author, you really got the wrong impression. She's funny and sarcastic, and the movie's hugely entertaining.
And of course, rest his soul, one of Rob Reiner's great movies was When Harry Met Sally. It's a classic version of the can man and women be friends trope, but full of iconic moments. If you never wanted to see it, YouTube Harry Sally fake orgasm and get back to us.
Exactly. One of the top grossing movies released on Valentine's Day is 50 Shades of Grey in 2015. And if you understand how this turd made $570 million, we don't like you.
Are you gonna make love to me now?
I don't make love. I fuck. Hard. I would like to fuck you into the middle of next week.
What are butt plugs?
And of course, is the movie Hitch, which is a Will Smith romantic comedy that grossed about $370 million. If you're a Will Smith fan like I used to be, YouTube Will Smith, Chris Rock, and get back to us on that one.
And, of course, Deadpool, the highest-grossing Valentine's Day film ever. And yes, Deadpool is a chaotic, hilarious superhero parody stuffed with crude jokes and hyperviolence and fourth-wall-breaking sarcasm. But stay with us on this.
Yeah, Wade Wilson was a wise guy mercenary, but when he met Vanessa, his entire life changes. And really different for these movies, the relationship, which is as awesome and romantic as you'll see, starts before Wade gains any power. This is crucial because it leaves no doubt that no matter how wild this story gets, their relationship is grounded in reality.
Yeah, and there's another pretty bold conceit for a superhero comedy because Wade is diagnosed with terminal cancer. And even though it shatters him, he's really selfless, and he pushes this woman who he loves away because he wants to spare her the horror of watching him die. That's love.
Yeah, so as we all know, as a last resort, he undergoes an evil genius treatment that makes him a superhero, but mutilates his face. But that's not just a condition, because the movie constantly emphasizes that love is Wade's motivation, not heroism. Even his jokes act like a kind of armor to protect him from his own vulnerability and the rejection he brought upon himself.
We won't belabor it, but their reunion at the end is as romantic and moving as it gets, because in truth, when all of the incredibly fun noise, Deadpool is truly a great love story.
So you can't think about Valentine's Day without horror movies, right?
Of course not.
There are too many to list, but here are some of our favorites, or at least our favorite log lines.
Of course, you got to start with My Bloody Valentine, which has the greatest log line. A slasher at a Valentine's Day dance. We're in.
Oh, yeah.
And then Cupid, which is another great title for a Valentine's Day movie. And it's got, well, it's a horror film featuring a vengeful Cupid. Or maybe it's a documentary.
And then there's a movie called X-Ray, also known as Hospital Massacre, which is good enough for us. And then Warm Bodies is a romantic zombie comedy with horror elements. What zombie movie isn't a comedy?
I know, right?
Yeah.
The most successful horror movie released for Valentine's Day is Heart Eyes.
For the past 2 years, a masked maniac known as the Hard Eyes Killer has stalked,
hunted,
and brutally slain couples on Valentine's Day.
With no motive yet uncovered.
This is more than just murder. He's like Cupid.
Have you ever seen Hard Eyes?
No, I want to.
I don't know. Unless it's about a killer heart with eyes or killer eyes with a heart, I'm not seeing it. So somebody tell me if...
And not that Valentine's Day ever goes right, but here are some great examples of Valentine's Day gone wrong. Over the years, several highly publicized Valentine's Day proposals in New York City, including Times Square flash mobs, have ended in rejection.
Yeah, more than once, someone gets dancers, videographers, giant screen set up in Times Square, and the best ones were when the young lady said, nope, but why stop there?
Some of the proposers wouldn't take nope for an answer because they were sure all they had to do to win the girl was stalk them. Sometimes people with restraining orders against them don't get that sending tons of flowers, chocolates, and cards to their partner isn't cool. Sometimes people with restraining orders go to jail, too.
And, just like every holiday, there's luxury chocolates laced with drugs. Yeah, I mean, this is so far only in the UK, but a guy in England went to jail for sending dosed chocolates to his ex on Valentine's Day, which apparently you're not allowed to do. We don't know why either, but I guess it can land you in the pokey.
And in 2018, a guy staged a big Valentine's Day flash mob at a woman's workplace, but she was his ex.
So hacking a billboard to show a Valentine's Day message is sweet and funny and romantic, and it also carries criminal charges for unauthorized access to electronic systems or cybercrime. Laws suck.
And speaking of things going wrong on Valentine's Day, here's a couple that spike around Valentine's Day. Some of the most widely known mass shootings occur on February 14th. More on that in a minute. Anyway, believe it or not, as high as the incidence of domestic violence is on Valentine's Day, it's even higher on Super Bowl Sunday if your team loses.
Yeah, that one actually makes sense.
Yeah, especially if your team loses.
Or if your partner tries to get you to take her to a romantic lunch. And of course, there's more activity from romance scammers and online dating fraud and fake gifts and flower delivery scams. Yeah, people are awesome.
Fox News' Dave Spencer is in studio now to explain why we should all be setting ourselves up for more than just a broken heart in some cases if we're not careful.
Yeah, hang on to your wallet, hang on to your information, more importantly. Romance scams, they're a major threat all across the country. In 2024, there were 65,000 cases just reported, totaling more than $1.1 billion, and those numbers are widely considered to be underreported, with victims often being too embarrassed to come forward. Those who do speak out hope others will heed their warning.
But most of the Valentine's Day scams are nothing compared to catfishing. Everyone knows there are thousands and thousands of catfishing stories. And maybe the weirdest thing about catfishing is the mental gymnastics someone has to get into to convince themselves that they've been in a relationship for 2 years with someone they've never even seen a picture of, who keeps asking them for money, plane tickets, gifts, and stuff like that.
We picked these examples because they involve the use of celebrities. We won't embarrass the first two by naming names, but the last two, well, you'll see. Our first is the Brad Pitt con. Wow. Yes, a scammer got someone to believe that he was Brad Pitt. He got to her on social media and even created a profile pretending to be Pitt's mother to get her to trust him. Of course, they're going to trust the mom.
Oh, God.
The woman eventually forked over about $850,000 to Brad Pitt.
Yeah, apparently at no time did she say, "Hey, Brad Pitt, we've never met and your mom's really nice and I'm in love with you, but tell me again why you need me to give you $850,000.
I know, it's so weird. A 74-year-old woman was so convinced that she was in an online relationship with Elon Musk that she left her husband, which is one thing, but then gave the catfisher a total of $600,000. Once again, what? And football fans remember this one. We aren't keeping the victim's name a secret because not only is the scam named after him, but there's a whole Netflix documentary on what this poor guy went through called Untold, The Girlfriend Who Didn't Exist.
It's the Manti Te'o hoax, and the fact that it was even called a hoax led a lot of people to believe that Te'o was catfishing someone, but no, he was the victim. It was another case of someone believing they were in a relationship with an online girlfriend, but what separates this from the pack is that no money ever changed hands. It was just about emotional and psychological torture for the amusement of this prick.
Yeah, Te'o was a star linebacker at Notre Dame who was drafted in the second round by the Chargers, who thought he'd gotten into a relationship with a girl online. The catfisher used photos of someone Teo knew from high school to convince him she was someone from his school days. The catfisher also had pictures of the fake girl whose name was Linnea Kekua.
And once he'd fallen in love, the catfisher convinced him that she died from leukemia. So Teo talked about his loss in the press, and the public responded with real emotion to this poor guy's loss. Then the scam was uncovered, and if that wasn't enough of a public humiliation, Netflix made that documentary that Bruce mentioned.
Yeah, the prick who did it never went to jail, never had to pay a penny in damages. Nice. Not that catfishing is ever good, but we'll wrap this up with something a little more lighthearted. When the victims are high profile and they don't really suffer any damages other than embarrassment, we are on board.
Definitely. There was a woman named Hope Jackson who got a few celebrities to believe that her daughter had died of cancer. Jesus. And she needed money to pay the medical bills. So she started exchanging messages with Kimberly Williams Paisley and Brad Paisley, her husband.
He's a good guitar player.
He really is.
Yeah. What makes this particularly crappy is that Kimberly was dealing with medical issues of her own. Jackson even had Brad sing Amazing Grace over the phone to her daughter before she died. And she also had Kate Gosling. Why? And got her.
It's just so random.
So he got her to dedicate a whole John and Kate plus 8 episode to her. Jackson was already a hardcore financial and Medicare scammer, so she's still cooling her heels behind bars where she belongs. But you got to give her points for having the balls to even try that one.
Some people think some of these catfishing stories are funny. We're guilty of it too sometimes. But make no mistake, that's victim shaming and it's not funny. There's an endless supply of nice people out there who are just lonely or gullible or vulnerable in some way. So if you suspect that you yourself or someone you know is being scammed, there are resources out there. You can start by contacting the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center or report it at reportfraud.ftc.gov.
Have you ever had a great Valentine's Day?
Or a horrible Valentine's Day?
Tell us your story at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and TikTok.
Or you can email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com.
A lot of police departments report higher domestic disturbance calls on Valentine's Day evening. They call it IPV, for intimate partner violence, which we don't think gets the point across quite as well as wife beating. But it's usually caused by a mix of ultimatums, jealousy, and alcohol. So some things stay the same.
God. Yeah, psychologists talk about heightened expectations, breakups before or on Valentine's Day, financial stress. It's like Christmas, only with heartbreak.
So I'm Dr. Julie Merriman, and as Valentine's approaches, I just want to give y'all some tips on how to take care of you. It is okay. For some of us, trying to set boundaries can feel very scary, like we're betraying someone, but I just want to invite you to consider that being able to set a boundary to take care of yourself actually helps you show up. So do yourself a favor this Valentine's, take care of you, and have a good day.
It's a good thing we have a psychologist, or we'd have had no idea. And, you know, speaking of alcohol in restaurants, bars, nightlife activity, there's this huge surge on February 14th. More DUIs, disorderly conducts, bar fights, and minor assaults during the 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. window, which is interesting because I'm usually drunk by 7.
Like having gift after gift delivered to someone who doesn't want them, which also sometimes violates restraining orders, also known as love bombing. Sounds like a record from the 80s.
Wait, that's not romantic?
Of course it is. And more activities from romance scammers online, dating fraud, and fake gifts and flower delivery scams. Like, again, people are awesome. So Valentine's Day has an ironic history of brutality behind its romantic image. And what Taboo Treasures list would be complete without mentioning some horrible, high-profile crimes?
Our first one is Oscar Pistorius, who was a superstar Olympic and Paralympic athlete. You might remember the story, but they used to call him the Blade Runner because he was a double amputee, and he had these prosthetics built that fit below the knee, and they looked like blades. And, the world celebrated this guy as a symbol of resilience and triumph over adversity.
And then he created a little adversity of his own. Long story short, one Valentine's Day, Pistorius heard a noise coming from inside the bathroom. So he did what anyone would do when they heard a noise coming from their bathroom. He pumped 4 rounds through the door. He thought it was an intruder. Yeah. How was he supposed to know it was his girlfriend, who he lived with? Happy Valentine's Day, murdered girlfriend.
As anyone who hasn't smoked as much weed as me remembers, the trial was a globally broadcast ghoul fest. Prosecutors said the shooting was intentional, but Pistorius was only charged with the South American equivalent of manslaughter. And then, fortunately, on appeal a few years later, the court changed the conviction to murder, and he got 13 years. Geez, I can think of a lot of people who'd be worth murdering if it only got me 15 years.
I can think of one right now.
What did I do?
Not you. And now everyone's favorite Valentine's Day massacre, the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Yeah, it's a perfect example of what happens when the nanny state, which is hardly a new concept, takes over our personal lives. We're not going to get political, but the fact is that making alcohol illegal created an entire subculture of organized crime that still has a throttle hold in some areas of commerce today.
So, of course, during Prohibition, 2 rival gangs were feuding over bootlegging territory in Chicago. And at the time, Chicago was already full of gang warfare over a lot of things, but mostly bootlegging.
Yeah, the South Side Italians were Al Capone's guys, and the North Side Irish gang were George Bugs Moran's. They'd been killing each other for years. So on Valentine's Day in 1929, 7 members of Moran's gang went to a garage on North Clark Street to pick up a discounted shipment of bootleg whiskey. But 2 of the 4 men who showed up were dressed as police officers, and the other 2 were in civilians' clothes. The gang thought it was a raid, so when the cops told them to line up with their faces against the wall, they obeyed.
Yeah, and almost immediately, the other guys fired off about 70 rounds with Thompson machine guns and shotguns and just chopped them to bits. When the killers left, it looked like it was 2 cops with 2 prisoners, and they just sort of walked away and nobody even noticed.
Yeah, what's interesting is that we all associate it with Capone, and it's a pretty good bet that it was his thing. But he had an alibi. He was in Florida when it happened. So officially the case went unsolved, but he did it.
Everybody knows he did it. So in the aftermath, the papers did something you'd never see today. They splashed all these gory shots of the dead guys and the bloody wall all over the front pages. And the Valentine's Day massacre became a symbol of what a stupid idea Prohibition was. The public had kind of romanticized outlaw culture up to then, but this was the end of that. And now it's been almost 100 years, but the Valentine's Day massacre is still a crowd favorite. And it was the moment the public finally got the message that there was nothing cute about these guys.
Yeah, and finally, not that any of these murders aren't horrible, but our last one by far is the most heartbreaking. We don't ordinarily like to talk about things like this, but we're including it for its historical significance and because we don't think tragedies like this should ever be forgotten. It's the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting on February 14th, 2018 in Parkland, Florida.
And if you don't already know, a former student at the school opened fire and killed 17 people and wounded 17 more. And to this day, it's one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history.
It sparked nationwide protests like the March for Our Lives movement and reopened the debate over gun control laws in the United States again.
And basically did no good. Ugh. Well, we're going to lighten things up and invite you to play along with us. We want to know if you think these Valentine's Day gestures are cringy or romantic. You be the judge.
So Kanye West bought 50,000 roses for Kim Kardashian, okay? Was it romantic? We don't know, but then they broke up and it was cringy, yes?
Yeah, but if it was cringy after the fact, well, we'll let our vast audience decide.
And then on February 14th, 2022, old Yeezy had a black pickup truck filled with roses delivered to Kim Kardashian while their divorce proceedings were still going on. And she was in a new relationship with Pete Davidson.
Cringy.
Yeah,
Cringy.
definitely cringy.
Yeah. And poor Pete Davidson. I shouldn't say that. I think he's got a pretty good life, but we love him.
We do. We love him.
But he got a bunch of Kim Kardashian tattoos, and then they broke up. The tattoo removal artist got rich.
Cringy? Half cringy.
It was, even when you're in the relationship, what do you think, audience? Cringy? Not cringy.
I don't know. And then, of course, Seal and Heidi Klum renewed their vows every year on Valentine's Day with elaborate themed ceremonies. It was romantic then, but then they got divorced. And now it's a meme.
Yeah, but that's not fair. I'm going not cringe.
Yeah, I wonder if when they see these memes, they're like, oh, fuck.
Oh, they're definitely cringing. Okay, this one is...
This is a good one.
Yeah, this is a guy named Chris Johnson's slightly overconfident moment.
Yes.
This has got to be the cringiest public cringe ever, and it was totally self-inflicted. This poor guy. You might know this one, too. There was an NBA game in Chicago, and during halftime, with a lot of people watching, a little spectacle erupted.
So dancers came out to romantic music. There were roses everywhere, and the giant Jumbotron flashed the words, "Will you marry me?" in gigantic letters. And you know where this is going. The woman got really uncomfortable, and then there was a long pause while the cameras lingered, and that didn't help. Eventually, she shook her head and very quietly said, "No." And the fans at the game and all over the country watched her walk off the stadium floor. The camera just kind of hung there for a while, as if it was stunned.
What happened next to this poor guy, it was fast and furious and absolutely no surprise. And YouTube and social media will make sure it keeps happening forever. I think we can all agree that's pretty cringy.
Yeah, it's cringy. We like to talk about collectibles, but pretty much everything we found is in the $100 to $500 range. Not that some of it isn't cool. For example, history collectors will pay up for original editions of the Chicago newspaper with the headlines about the St. Valentine's Day massacre that we talked about, if they're in good enough condition.
But other than that, it's mostly postcards. But it is funny that even as far back as the early 20th century, there were these really cynical anti-love cards. And during the same period, there were other kinds of novelty cards, like the vinegar Valentine card that was just all insults. And then, of course, there are collectible movie posters and other pop culture memorabilia, like the early editions of the Song of My Funny Valentine. But we did find some collectible love letters, and some of them are really moving.
Yeah, first one is in 2020, a collection of romantic letters from Tupac Shakur was sold for a whopping $75,000. There were 22 of them, and all addressed to his high school sweetheart from the age of 16. They documented their relationship and eventually their breakup.
Frida Kahlo, of course, was a major artist of the 20th century. Salma Hayek starred in a biopic about her called Frida, and her work influenced a whole generation of artists. And over the years, she wrote a collection of love letters to Jose Bortoli, who was a painter and a writer, and her last love. So all in all, there were 25 of these letters, and some of them were as long as 100 pages. And she also sent him poems, photos, and drawings. And in April of 2015, they were auctioned for over $130,000.
Yeah, Leonard Cohen's girlfriend, Marianne, was the inspiration for a lot of Cohen's most successful songs, like So Long, Marianne. The love letters he addressed to her after they broke up sold for almost $900,000. And this one's kind of sweet. In 1953, Francis Crick wrote a heartfelt letter to his son, Michael, that detailed his groundbreaking discovery of DNA structures. The letter's dated back to March 19th, 1953, and it's important because it contains one of the earliest written descriptions of DNA as a genetic code. In the letter, Crick explained the implications of his and James Watson's findings, which they were about to publish in the journal Nature just a month later.
And it's notable not only for its scientific content, but also for its personal touch, because it ended with lots of love, Daddy. And it's so sweet. That's why historians think of it as a love letter. It eventually became a historical artifact, sold for $6 million at a Christie's auction in New York in April of 2013. And to this day, it's the most ever paid for a letter at auction.
So that does it for today's episode of Taboo Treasures. We really hope you liked it. It's a little different than normal when we do holidays, but we'll get back to the weird shit soon. Please reach out to us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com. That's where you can email us, or you can reach out to us on social media at, what is it, Jeff?
Instagram, no. Yeah. Taboo, we're so techie.
That's all right.
You can find us on Instagram at Taboo Treasures.
At Instagram.
That's not Instagram.com. It's just Taboo Treasures at Instagram.
I forget what it is.
It's Taboo Treasures. If you go to Instagram and search on Taboo Treasures, you'll find us.
And on the TikTok, we're there too. I can edit this and make it work, but I might just leave it as it is. Well, thanks for listening. Goodbye. From EVO, Taboo Treasures is produced by Bruce Whitkin and Jeff Levine. Executive producer Brandon Morgan. Music by the Lonely Bulls.